Welcome to Chart Chat. In this series, we look at the subject's chart for the first time and share our initial reactions. This is not meant to be a comprehensive dive into the chart, but rather an intuitively led discussion of our first impressions and what we know about the person already. We are looking at Madison Harnish's chart. She was born August 21st, 1997 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, which is surprising to me that she's from Oklahoma. I love that. There are no houses on the chart because we do not know her birth time. So we only have the locations of the planets by the signs that they're in to work with here. And the other thing I'll say, which is why this is going to be fun, I think, is that Maddie is only a few months, would it be older than this?
Just a little bit older, yeah.
Yeah, so really, really close. So in terms of generational planets, a lot of them are the same. Yeah, that's going to be fun to hear Maddie's take on some of these generational planets that are in her chart. And generational planet just means that the planet takes a long time to move through that sign. So like Uranus, for example, that's here in Aquarius, that was there for like, I don't even know, it's like 7 years that Uranus stays in a sign. So anybody born in that whole time has that same generational planet.
Yeah. Very, very close to being a Virgo, which I always am interested in anyone who is born on a cusp. I was also born on a cusp between Pisces and Aries. And so I always wonder, like, I would wonder for Madison, does she identify more with Leo, with Virgo, or somewhere in between?
Yeah.
And it's those very late degrees there.
Well, and I'll bet because I'm on a cusp also between Gemini and Cancer, and I always identified with Cancer just as much, if not more. But when I saw my entire natal chart, my IC is also in Cancer. So it's like just like Madison's chart here with her North Node and Mercury. That's what these guys are. That one's the North Node, and that's the Mercury in Virgo. With that much energy in Virgo, I wonder, she probably does identify quite a bit. And when I saw that she was a Leo sun, I was kind of surprised. Not that she's not shiny and bright and all of that, but she's more serious than that. She's a little more
Totally.
chill than that. Maybe those aren't the right words, but her vibe is so chill, and I don't get Leo sun from her at
Right.
first.
She seems like she's like got it together. Like she's got her thoughts in order. She knows what she's going to say. And to me, that's Virgo energy. And also to me, Virgo energy is like having the system in place to create YouTube videos and put them online takes a little bit of Virgo energy to get that done. Plus that Leo sun, I'm sure, helps for being in front of a camera.
And you can definitely see, like, watching over time on her channel, like she has come out of her shell quite a bit. Like the early ones, I think she always has a script that she's working with, but the early ones were a lot more like her reading the script. And I would say the more recent ones are more like her performing the script. Like she's stepping into like her natural flow and rhythm. And she just seems like she feels more comfortable in her skin. Obviously, that's just what it looks like from the outside. But I enjoy her content, new and old. So there's good stuff.
Yeah, interesting. Let me see. So it looks like her moon is in Aries, which I know several people with an Aries moon. And I can see that playing out in lots of different ways. In some ways, I see it as being in touch with your inner child.
That's interesting.
I wonder, I'm not so sure about that with her. I guess I don't know her well enough, but I know that she did just have a child recently. Not sure how that factors in.
Well, I do know, and I was looking at both of these pieces, like they're close enough together that it definitely feels like kind of one piece of energy there in Aries. And she is like she has a warrior spirit about her. Like very much taking on, mostly MLMs, like big, powerful MLMs with a lot of momentum and power behind them. And here she is, like telling a very factual but contradictory version of the story and putting it out there with what can only be described as courage, I think. But exactly like you said, like she has her viewpoint together, like from her very first video, which I only rewatched today. Um, yeah, she just like had such a point of view from day one on like what story what's the ultimate point of her content. And I feel like every single thing that she's made has all been serving that ultimate point of, I think, making sure that people don't get taken advantage of. It's kind of what it all boils down to between the MLMs and the scams and the influencers that she talks about. It's all just people getting taken advantage of. So wonder how that Aries moon, like she's almost like protective over the collective, like a mama bear over everyone. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's cool.
totally. That's interesting. And it looks like that. I see this red line between her moon there. And I mix up the symbols still. Bear with me on that. But what is this
You're
over
talking
here?
this one?
Yes.
So
What
that
is
is her Venus. So
Venus
that's
in?
Venus in Libra. And then also in Libra is her Chiron. So those are her two Libra placements. And without her birth time, I mean, it's possible that Libra is her rising or midheaven. And that really wouldn't surprise me because, again, she puts off such a
Yes.
chill vibe that would make so
Mhm.
much more sense than a lot of the other energy that she's carrying. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's like her rising sign or her
Yeah.
midheaven. But
And a sense of justice too, where it's directly across
yes.
from that moon, and like that's what she's fighting for. And if
Yeah.
there's a wound, a wounded healer in that area too, is perhaps maybe she's suffered, whether in this life or other lives, some sort of form of injustice, and now she's here to fight back and to correct that for the collective.
I think you're exactly right. I had thought about Chiron and Libra only as long to think, yeah, I don't think I've ever thought about that before. But that makes so much sense. Like, so Maddie said, like the wounded healer. So that's this guy right here is Chiron, AKA the wounded healer. And it represents like our deepest, darkest pain, but also where we learn how to make medicine for that pain. And then we can also give that medicine to the collective and help them to feel better also. So not only does she have this, like, I'm going to make some medicine and give that away, but then also her Venus, like both pointing towards that Libra sign of justice and equality and all of that. And then, yeah, like we have this one opposite the moon and then Saturn opposite Chiron. So like it's all this big crisscross of energy. And I think you're exactly right of like she suffered her own injustice before. And that's why she's so sensitive to being taken advantage of in this lifetime. She's told a couple of her own stories where like different MLMs have approached her and she started to like buy into it, like not with money, but like mentally, even just entertaining the idea, and then would find out like, oh, this is the scam, this is an MLM or whatever. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I think she has a good nose for it, for sniffing it out. And then this chunk of energy, like she does want to fight back, but her style of how she fights is so Virgo, in my opinion. Like she's doing the research and got her details and her timeline, and like it's she's got her shit together, basically.
Yeah, and she puts it out in this neat little package of her YouTube videos on her channel, which are nicely produced, very well put together. You can tell
Totally.
that's, to me, that's some Virgo energy. And that also makes me see this line here between her sun, this red line, and her Pluto in Sagittarius. And that's like when you said, she was maybe buying into a belief system of,
Mm.
like with the MLMs. And that's part of buying into it, not just with your money, but with the way you believe in that and the way that they can convince that. And so to have Pluto there is, Pluto is one of the more intense planets, and that's directly not opposed, but there's a direct connection there to her sun in Virgo. So it makes me think that adds fuel to her fire, where that's where
Yes.
her phoenix rises from the ashes, is in these places where there are belief systems that either do or do not work. And she
Yeah.
wants to shed light on that.
Dude, that's a good one. And it's rare, I think, rare from what I've seen, to have two planets both in the same element creating a square. Like normally squares would be between planets of the same modality. So like mutable signs square each other or fixed signs square each other. Like to have Pluto and Sagittarius, a fire sign, squaring the sun in Leo, another fire sign, like squares also, like that creates tension, which creates growth. So her sun square her own deepest, darkest healing. Like, yeah, I mean, she's healing herself and she came to like shine that light, which is very much informed by all this process. Um, Pluto and Sagittarius, I've heard, is like in a past life, you basically let yourself be overpowered and like somebody else's beliefs installed in you and you lived according to those, and by the end of it you were really unhappy that you had let yourself follow along with whatever their belief systems were. And that's like really general, but I mean, with as much religion as in the world today, you got to think there's plenty of room for a story like that to have happened. Do you know any more about it, since I think, like, isn't your Pluto and Sagittarius also?
Yeah, and now that you say that, yeah, I think it is in Sagittarius. Because that is one of those generational placements where
Right.
anyone around my age is going to have that. And in my life, I don't know what happened before, but I know that I'm fighting for my own belief system. And that, like, here I am talking about astrology when, no one else in my family was going to be doing that, but I decided that this is what I believe in, this is valid, and I'm going to move forward with that. Like, I'm going to pursue that. And
Yeah.
so I wonder, I don't know anything about her family or where she comes from. Um, or, and it could stem to like past lives. Like we say, sometimes it's childhood, sometimes it's things that go so far beyond that we can't really even fully know the whole picture. But what I do know is that, like, this time around, and I think she could probably relate, that we're fighting for what we personally believe in, and it's not anyone else's belief system, it's ours.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that, yes. And then you also add in Uranus and Jupiter, both retrograde in Aquarius. So, I
Yes.
mean, all of that energy also. Do you have both of those, or is your Jupiter in a different sign?
um
I think you have both of those.
I think I do. My Jupiter is in Aquarius, I know that.
That's
I
right,
think
because
that
you
that's
you
also
basically have this same stellium in your second house. I think it's
right.
3 planets. Yeah.
Her and I,
So,
Jupiter recently was in Aquarius, so we both were having our Jupiter return
yeah.
pretty recently here.
So
And so
Jupiter's
it's
made it up to there. So yeah, it was when it was
uh-huh.
back here. So sometime in the last year, I think, thereabouts.
That's something that we've been going through and are just now kind of moving out of that. So I don't know how that affected her, but to me, it felt like a coming home, sort of, to myself and to what I believe in, and sort of finding that validation from within to sort of
Oh,
step forward into this, like, this is who I am and I have nothing to apologize for.
yeah. Like owning your identity, your
Yeah.
individual self. Talk a little bit about like Jupiter return. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I don't know how to explain it totally besides from my own experience. But during my Jupiter return, personally, it felt like everything that I was believing in or following in my life that wasn't mine, that didn't come from me, that came from outside of me, that rose to the surface to be seen and to be addressed. So for me, I last year ended up quitting my job, that I was basically working in a job that was allowing one of my parents to like live vicariously through me. I had basically adopted my dad's belief system and said, okay, if you say this is right, then this is what I'm going to do. And this is the job I'm going to have. And I got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And I decided it's either like, I'm going to do this and be miserable, or I'm going to take a leap of faith and just pursue what I want to pursue, even if that's bringing in a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels, is taking a leap of faith on yourself and finding that validation from within to be able to do that. And that's what my Jupiter return gave me. But it does take courage to act on it, and it's scary. So that's not to be, ignored.
Totally.
And for her, I mean, like I said, like she did just have a baby. So that's like her last, 9 months of being pregnant.
Yeah.
Is I think that may have overlapped. And so I just wonder how maybe that would factor in. Don't know
Well,
much
and
about that.
especially where so much of her work is, yes, scammers, but lately she's also talked a lot about like family channels and how that is problematic on so many levels. I mean, she does so many videos and does such a good job with it. Like, to do it justice, yeah, you really got to get into it. But like how damaging that could potentially be for those kids that like grow up in the middle of being filmed from like inside the womb for the rest of time. Like that's,
Yeah.
it's something that
Having
has never happened before. And now in society, we're going to get to see what the effects of it are. And I think all that Aquarius energy, like so futuristic and can sense like what's happening in the future. And I think her concern is extremely warranted. And if anything, like she's giving us a glimpse of just how bad it could play out. Obviously, only time will tell. But yeah, those people with heavy Aquarius energy, it's like you almost like weren't built for your time, and yet you're here to try to like be who you are, even though society is not really built for you. But like you're here to help us like build the newest version of society. Like we want to hear from you. I love her voice and her perspective and her views on things. So I think there's a lot of people with this little stellium, like people that were born in 1997, like this Neptune and
Aquarius.
Capricorn, Uranus and Jupiter, like that chunk of energy, like we need to hear from you guys. Like you're such big participants, providers of like what the future reality could really be, and like what a humanitarian perspective of like how should we be living, how should we
Right.
be constructing society, like give us the humanitarian perspective. Because like speaking personally, I don't have any planets in Aquarius. I don't carry a big chunk, just a tiny little sliver. And I love when you guys start talking and saying things, because I'm like, that's a perspective that most of us don't have access to. So your voices are
Yeah.
so valuable.
We're breaking new ground for sure, and being different on purpose. And it is interesting to see that like Aquarius on the other end of that is Leo, which is where her sun is. And so for you to say that, lately she's been sort of coming into her own, it seems like, and really becoming comfortable is, maybe it is that Jupiter return of like she's getting comfortable in her Aquarius energy enough to like want to be seen. Like Leo
Yeah.
wants to be seen and is comfortable with that. And you really have to be comfortable with yourself as you are to be able to be that comfortable being seen.
Yeah. Well, and you think like, she started 2 years ago. I saw this morning when I was looking at her channel that she has like 324,000 subscribers, and she uploaded her first video on January 1st, 2020. And so that was just like, I mean, almost very Virgo, maybe a little Neptune and Capricorn. The fact that she had her stuff like so aligned to release it on January 1st, like, I wonder how long it was in the works leading up to that date. But, anyways, so in the
Yeah.
last 2 years of posting content, it's like she just has a confidence in her right to have the opinions that she has. And it's so funny because yeah, in those first videos, you can just kind of see that she's a little uncomfortable, but she believes in her message enough to push through it, which is always admirable. It's always uncomfortable at the very beginning. Um, but all of that to say, the first videos and like, all of it really kind of blew up for her. And like now tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are watching and listening to what you have to say and loving it. And her subscriber count goes through the roof in 2 years. Like she's already at 324,000. Like that's bananas and so awesome that she's found that community out there because yes, she does have a valuable voice and a perspective that's worth hearing, as do lots of people that are in that generation.
Yeah.
Because yeah, all three of those technically count as like generational planets.
Yeah, definitely. We're like the instigators of the age of Aquarius, I like to
Right?
think.
Push us
Of
off the
like,
cliff. The other piece that I have been drawn to in terms of like what she does and her work of investigating and like, diving deep and figuring it out and bringing out the truth and like, here's what really happened and here's my evidence and like all of that. It also feels so scorpionic to me. And that's where her Mars is, which I think is very interesting because still pretty close to her Chiron. So like, again, when you like tie those two together of her own personal wounding and injustice and inequality or however that was manifesting in a past life, and then combine that with her Mars and Scorpio of just like that dedication, that passionate, intense dedication to the truth and to knowing the truth, no matter what that looks like, and bringing it to light and solving it and all of that. So all of that just feels very tied together and intentional, especially when you look at like Chiron then is opposite Saturn, which brings you back to like connected to this little chunk of energy. And yeah, when you add Aries plus Scorpio, like the power of that warrior is off the charts. And she channels it in such a gentle way. And I wonder what you think about like her south node is in Pisces. Like as far as being this giant warrior out in the world, she's still also a Pisces south node. But she's just so gentle as she comes across. So yeah, I wonder if you think those are connected.
Yeah, it makes me wonder because that's like the majority of the water in her chart too, is like that Scorpio there with her Mars, and then the South Node in Pisces that's seems to be the biggest chunk of her water energy.
Yep, that's all she's got. And without
Yeah,
knowing her rising sign in midheaven.
exactly. But it does seem more dominant in, well, fire energy is pretty spread out there.
Really, it looks like cardinal is probably the biggest concentration.
Initiative there.
She's here to make something, like
Yeah,
something
absolutely. And
real.
that's like that plus like Virgo energy, in my opinion. I mean, I have a Virgo North Node, and so I'm totally centered on like, how can I take this Pisces energy of mine and like make things happen? And she's got that going on too. And she's doing it, which is like inspiring for me to see,
No doubt.
having that similar placement. Is like, how does she, like I say, like her being a YouTuber is like taking these emotions that she has around these subjects, because she obviously feels deeply about them, and she's turning it into something in the world that's physical. Well, physical in the sense that it's on YouTube,
Yeah,
but
for
it
sure.
exists, and she's sharing it. And one of the biggest themes with Virgo too is service. Like she's using this to serve the collective. And that Mars and Scorpio, that like kind of that, it like adds some fire to the water a little bit. It's kind of that, like, this is how water boils, is you add
Yeah.
fire and then you can cook potatoes in it, like it's a magical combination
Transform.
of water. Yes, transformation. Exactly.
Well, and her Scorpio Mars is sextiling, is what that line is, her sun in Leo. So that is what you're talking about with you take fire and add water. So these two pieces of energy are connected. When she engages one, the other one is automatically there to support it. Yeah, I mean, she's bringing the truth to light and then shining really brightly in the world. Like, she's attracting a lot of attention. Um, and that's good because yes, I think I love that you brought that piece in about Virgo, like really just wants to be of service. And that can look like a lot of things. It can look like being a handyman and like, tinkering with things, or you can educate people. Like, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So technically Mercury is very at home here in Virgo. And even though it's retrograde, it's still connected like to her North Node, all there together, where yeah, she's got a service to provide. That's like a very real like backbone of what she's here to do. And so much of this warrior spirit, yeah, she clearly like is so passionate about her topics. Like, one of the things that I respect most about her and her channel and her work process is that she does not have a regular upload schedule. Stuff is ready when it's ready, because the quality of the finished product is what we're here for. We're not here for every single Monday or whatever kind of schedule you're imposing on yourself. So I really love that. She's very authentic in that way, or,
Yeah. Yeah,
I think you get what I mean.
exactly. She wants what she puts out in the world to be what it needs to be of the highest service. And so she's
Yeah.
not rushing anything, you know? And something that I personally love about a Pisces South Node is this deep sense of oneness and interconnectedness and understanding that on a very like soul level. And so for her to highlight these cases on her YouTube channel, it's like she understands that by doing that, like, we're all connected and we all have something to learn from each other. And so that's why she's highlighting these people, is like, that's a great service, is to provide a mirror for all of us to look into and to see
Yeah,
ourselves, to learn and to grow.
totally. There's just such a message behind every single episode that she does. And yeah, it is a true service for her to be doing her work. And I'm glad that it inspires you, because yeah, I think there's a lot of people around your age, born in that 1997 timeframe, that you guys have such a perspective that is so needed right now in the midst of all of the upheaval and the social inequality that still exists amongst races and genders and so many things out there that just make you sick to your stomach when you think like, this is 2022, how is this still happening? Like, WTF,
Yeah.
for real? So I mean, I think you guys like have maybe not like all the answers, but you sure do paint a different picture than just the status
Being,
quo version of what is.
yeah, just by being who we are, it's like we
Exactly.
don't necessarily even need to do anything. But I think a lot of the people who have this similar placement in my generation, I think a lot of us feel pretty out of place and like maybe we don't fit in or we don't belong here. And in a sense, that's a superpower. By leaning into that, like, we're supposed to, by just being authentic and who we came here to be, we get to show a new way of being. And that's powerful.
And I mean, we're in a bigger picture sense, like that's exactly what's happening like in the world as a whole right now.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of the transit energy that's playing out, like we are seeing the end of the old earth and the beginning of the new earth. And this energy of like this Neptune and Capricorn, like dreaming of our vision of what the world could be. Uranus and Aquarius, like a different way of viewing humanity and our interconnectedness and our roles together. Jupiter also like just expanding and blowing up our sense that like we're all here for a reason. Like, we all have our own independent spirit, and that's exactly as it should be. Every ounce of diversity is exactly as it should be. So yeah, how do we like make a new start? There's so much out there about fixing the old and like wanting to prove your point to the other side, but like some of it really is exactly what you said, just living by example, being the new earth version right now and letting other people catch on as they will. And yeah, because I think there's a lot of peace in these placements where there is just a natural appreciation for how interconnected all of us really are. And the ripple effects that move between us and the consequences of our actions that play out on other people. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot to think about there. And if you're going to build a world where like there's true equality between all people, personally, like this energetic imprint, there is something in here about like you have this combination of like being able to see the future and feel into the future of what is like our best possible version. And for her, like there's this warrior spirit of like now she's here to fight for it, you know, and show up in the world and be like, here's my flag and I'm planting it and this is what it is. And yeah, I that's just exciting. I see this as like a revolutionary energy with a lot of the exactly right skills and tools to do the job that she's here to do, like that Virgo attention to detail, like you said, that helps her like actually put stuff out into the world. That's good because she's got a lot of energy going on inside of her that needs that outlet.